So thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Fisher. And we all know that this is very important to all of us. And so at this time, I would like to open the floor for any discussion.
Commissioner Bruno,
Yes.
maybe I missed it. Did Secretary Fisher move that, and was it seconded so we can move into discussion?
Yes, I asked for discussion first, so thank you, President Goring. I'd like to request a motion for the policy amendment.
Moved, so moved.
And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion at this time?
Yeah, this is Russell Redding. Secretary Fisher brought this up at the NASDA meeting, and I really appreciated his pointing out that, you know, the broadband need certainly exists, and the involvement of electric cooperatives. I think all of us appreciate the history of the electrification of our country, and certainly many parallels to the rural broadband. So we would appreciate support of the committee for this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Redding. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. So
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yes, Secretary Fisher, thank you. And I'm not going to let you off the hook just yet. We have another action item about federal economic development programs, and I think this speaks to the very important subject of rural and urban interface. And so, Secretary Fisher, I wanted to open the floor to see if you had any brief comments pertaining to this action item.
Sure. Well, as we know, in rural development, there are many definitions. My last count was 45 for various programs around rural development. And sometimes they fit extraordinarily well. And at other times, we just can't get the approval because they're hamstrung by what their rules say and what it is that they're doing and trying to provide for us for agriculture. And they're extraordinarily helpful and great to work with. And so what I'm requesting here is that rural development include rural to urban agricultural development. And what I mean by that is, so sometimes you can get approval for a development in terms of on-farm, but obviously on-farm has to have somewhere to go with its product to go, in many cases, to be processed. And so what we found is, in fact, one time we went to Washington to get an approval for one particular project. And that's because after the farm operation had these foodstuffs, we were able to dovetail that with a food desert arrangement and allowed processing to go into the urban area where it could be processed. And so it was a great, a great development for both the farming community and for the community at large itself. So what's happened is that we want to be able to connect rural areas with producers in repurposed urban manufacturing locations. There are factory buildings littered across the country, and whether they're empty or actually whether they're in production, it's a great win for both the municipality or the township or wherever that is, and at the same time it connects our farmers. So we're calling it the Rural Development Connection. Rural to urban ag connection, because rural development most times can't approve that in terms of going into the more urbanized areas with these products, because the rules just don't allow it. So for food deserts, as I said, we were able to get a waiver, but it really shouldn't have to get a waiver because I think it would expand the possibility for all of agriculture. So that's really what this motion speaks to. And so
Thank you very much. I'm sorry, did you have an additional comment, sir?
Oh, thank you. No, I just wanted to motion it.
Okay, oh, thank you. We have a motion to accept the policy amendment. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
Secretary Fisher and Madam Chairwoman, I have a question on the term around repurposed urban manufacturing, and just curious, Secretary, if you can illuminate the need for the specificity around the kind of location that we're talking about, rather than just processing in any capacity in an urban area.
Sure, I appreciate that. I guess in many of our urbanized areas, whether it was in the Midwest where manufacturing had a period of where it was waning. Now, of course, it's coming back. We always said repurposed because of the fact that it would help to demonstrate, at least at the very elementary level, what that meant, which is many times we have factories or former sites where where they could easily be used in manufacturing of food if rural development would sort of put its heft to it and allow the farmers to go in and work in those areas. But I'm not married to it. I was just concerned that I think that if we say repurposed, at least to the, Congress sometimes doesn't always understand everything we're asking. But they do know that they have buildings that are empty in these areas. And I just thought that it might add a little more heft to the position, but it doesn't necessarily, I'm not married to the term.
Is there any other discussion?
This is Phyllis Shimabukuro Geyser. I'm the chairperson in Hawaii, and I thank you, Kate, for bringing that up, because that was a similar question that I had on my mind. In Hawaii, we have very limited land mass, and so we do have a lot of standalone farms, and sometimes they need to bring their ag crops into the urban areas where the packing and processing distribution is. So would it be limited to getting federal recognition and eligibility if we were to adopt it as is, or should we say processors in urban manufacturing location, including repurposed facilities? I mean, I'm okay with the action item. I support it, but I share some concern as Secretary Greenberg mentioned about the specific language.
Well, I'll be more than happy to amend the language. It's the concept I'm looking for, which is sometimes rural development just doesn't recognize this particular aspect and able to supply funds. So certainly more than happy to change the term. It's not, as I said, if you give me the language, I'll change it right now.
Commissioner Brono?
Yes.
Yeah. Doug Goring, North Dakota.
Yes, President Goring.
One thing to keep in mind about our policies is as long as we have the intent laid out for our people, they'll work with Congress to make sure that we actually get the right language proposed, or to that end, we can push and advocate for the language that best fits. We can do amendments, but if it's captured and if there's a really good reason why we shouldn't have a word, we should probably eliminate it. But if it kind of gets to where everybody wants, we can let our policy team drive that whole issue forward, capturing the sense of where everybody wants to be with this. Otherwise, sometimes we miss some stuff. It's going to be Congress who actually writes the language in the end.
Thank you, President Goring. Is there any other discussion?
Madam Chair, if I may make a recommendation either for striking language now or just for clarifying intent, if this works for Secretary Fisher, would just to have that line state, NASDA supports extending federal economic development program eligibility for rural development to include rural to urban agricultural development projects that connect producers with processors, providing a stronger connection.
I think it's great. So I'm willing to amend my motion. Doug, I'm just going to amend it now if it's okay with you. So I think that language states it beautifully. I appreciate it.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to include that language.
Okay, Secretary Fisher amends his motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second the amendment.
Thank you.
Thanks, Doug.
Is there any other discussion? All in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 All opposed, vote nay. Any abstentions?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yes,
I
the
don't-
amended motion passes.
Yeah, this could be unprecedented for me in NASDA. So
We
I just
We
appreciate
appreciate that, Secretary Fisher. Thank you very much. We
you.
very much appreciate that.
all the members.
All righty, we will move on to the policy amendment on diversity, inclusion, and racial equity.
Yes.
Yes, President Goring, I will turn the floor over to you.
So thank you, Commissioner Bronow. And I want to thank Secretary Ward too. Both of you agreed to serve on this committee and you've done an excellent job and really appreciate it under such trying times. I think it just stands to reason, like our last issue that we dealt with, that this is a members organization, and to have that dialogue and to get to the point where we actually have policy that represents this organization is so vitally important. And it's to that end that I wanted to make some comments before I actually introduce this policy amendment. I know these are unprecedented times and it may seem a bit unconventional, and maybe even some feel that the way in which these things have come forward may not be necessarily grassroots based, but I will tell you that this particular amendment was dealt with by the executive committee at NASDA. And with the hard work of our policy team and working with some of the other regions, I can tell you that this has a grassroots flavor to it. It has a lot of support from the grassroots. So since I'm so sensitive to the fact that membership organizations should never be driven from the top down, this really was driven from our states and our regions as we continued to develop, progress, modify. And I know Zach and Max worked very hard with the regions to make sure that when we're done, we had something that did represent what a lot of regions and states were bringing forward. So with that, and I know we're short on time, I want to touch on the fact that we would be looking at changing our guiding principles from 6 to 7. We would strike the word federal, so we urge policymakers at all levels to adopt similar guidelines. I'll try to go through this quickly. The new language under diversity and inclusion states NASDA recognizes that the roots of racism run deep in our shared history we must address. NASDA believes that the future of agriculture is best served when all of those in our agriculture community are empowered, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, or religious creed. We believe that the diversity and inclusion are fundamental principles of a sustainable agricultural community and necessary to advance the agriculture industry. We believe strongly NASDA strongly commits itself to its policies to inclusion, outreach, and engagement to embrace diversity within the agriculture sector and to combat racism in all forms. Under the new section 16.7, diversity, inclusion, and racial equity, NASDA supports all genders, races, creeds, religions, sexual orientations, and backgrounds of the agriculture community. To further that end, NASDA members support the following. NASDA believes federal, state, and local policy should strive to support all agricultural communities equitably. We support programs consistent with NASDA's guiding principles that offer the opportunity to advance diversity, inclusion, and racial equity. We believe that federal policy should support local and national collaborations and are broadly inclusive and focused on achieving racial equity. NASDA believes that federal, state, and local governments must play a key role in collaborations for achieving racial equity, centering community, and leveraging institutional partnerships. With that, Madam Chair, I would move it and then save a few other comments after a second.
Thank you, President Goring. And I think I heard a second.
Second from Rhode Island.
Thank you very much. Let's open for discussion.
So, Commissioner Bronow?
Yes, yes, sir.
I'd like to say that I believe that this is an issue that is felt throughout our country. We have problems in areas. I am proud of this organization, so very proud of this organization and a lot of our members. We have always been inclusive and we have acted with honor and above reproach, I believe. With that being said, we are the example. And I believe that this statement represents not only our organization, but it makes a statement to other organizations and to the rest of the world. So with that, I move to, or I allow others to now speak on this issue, and I thank you for the time.
Thank you, President Goring. And I just would like to make a follow-up comment. Beth Ford, who was with us as CEO of Land O'Lakes, said, we absolutely need everyone at the table. And that is such a critical statement. Now is not the time to exclude anyone, and we need everyone. I think back to my experience as working at an 1890 historically Black land grant institution, who I would dare say, had they not gotten behind me, I wouldn't be here today as a commissioner. And during that time, I had the opportunity to work for 14 years with Black, brown farmers, women farmers, who were amongst the most innovative problem solvers. They had the culture of preserving the heritage and preserving our environment. Very talented individuals that I had the privilege of working with, but watched them struggle for many years to obtain resources, having to just struggle to qualify for commercial credit, or to have federal and state programs roll out that were so complicated. Even with my terminal degree, I couldn't even understand how to apply for some of those things. And all of the challenges that they face, it's now time that there's an equal playing field, or maybe it needs to be a little bit unequal in the favor of some of these audiences. But certainly this statement in working with everyone, no matter what background, is very important. And I just want to say how much it can impact so many communities that NASDA is standing behind this. So thank you for allowing me that moment to share that comment. And I would like to open the floor for any other discussion.
Madam Chair, this is Russell Redding, and I just want to say thank you for your comments. I think you put it in stark terms for us in historical perspective. And I want to say thank you for that. To President Goring and the executive committee, I was really pleased to see this sort of come out of the executive committee, and it builds on the statement that was issued by NASDA back in June, and I thought it was really well done, and particularly the last part of the sentence that talks about advancing and sustaining a culture free from prejudice and inequality. There's nothing more, I think, important in a national organization, particularly one that feeds people and brings communities together, than to make sure that we have a culture free of prejudice and inequality. I want to just encourage everyone's support, and certainly this policy recognizes past transgressions. It supports the equality, supports the opportunities and programs to promote in diversity and inclusion and racial equity. It utilizes, importantly, I think in the top where we strike federal, this is not something owned by some level of government, right? It's owned by all of us. And I was really pleased to see that recognition that it is local, state, federal. Our work as NASDA is really building on those collaborations and seeing that everyone at all levels takes to heart the issue of racial equality and recognizes that we are, we are, the only way that we make the progress, as I said back in June, was if we're going to feed equality, to feed the future, right? That's important. So anyway, with that, just a note of appreciation and thank you to the states and commissioners and folks who weighed in, but particularly out of the national leadership that we have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Reddy.
Commissioner Bronaugh,
Yes.
this is John LeBeau from Massachusetts. I just wanted to say I had originally registered for the other committee meeting on, but I switched over to this one because I wanted to attend this meeting for all the things on the agenda, but particularly this. Very quickly, this was the right thing. This is the right thing for this organization to do. We need to make a formal statement in this regard, and I tip my hat to the executive committee for bringing it forward. Thank you.
And Commissioner Bronaugh?
Yes, thank you.
This is Commissioner Freed from the state of Florida. I too am a strong supporter of this policy amendment and put forth. We did the same thing here in the state of Florida from day one. We have changed our internal anti-discrimination policy inside of the department. We also hired the first ever diversity and inclusion director inside of our state for the Department of Agriculture, as well as in the recent months have gone back through and are changing all of our internal policies dealing with race and race relations. And so I'm a strong supporter that we as a national organization are moving this ball forward to show our commitment to this very important issue. So thank you for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other?
Bronaugh,
Yes.
if I may, I recognize the time. So as a co-sponsor, we obviously worked in depth with the other co-sponsors and colleagues on this, and just want to extend my thanks to all of our colleagues who were in the depths of going back and forth on language. To you, Commissioner Bronaugh, for your support as chair of this committee. Director Gehring, of course, your support on the executive committee has been key. And so I just reiterate what the others have said. So thank you all.
Thank you. And just thank the NASDA Executive Committee, to you, Commissioner Greenberg, Secretary Ross, Director Taylor, and Secretary Redding. Thank you all. Is there any other discussion? All righty, all in favor, please vote by saying aye.
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 All opposed, vote nay. And any abstentions? All righty, we are very, very proud to move this policy amendment forward, and thank you all very much for your comments and for the work that we're doing today. I think we are about out of time. I know we had a couple of other things on the agenda, but the time is now 2:11, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. So we will close the meeting at this time, and I don't think I need a vote to do that. If not, I want to thank everyone for joining us for the Rural Development and Financial Security Committee meeting. Thank you all.
Thank you, Commissioner Bronaugh.
All done.
Thanks for your
Thank you.
support, President Goring. Thank you.